Welcome to Hispanic Pride, Orgullo Hispano, produced by the Miami-Dade County Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board in collaboration with community newspapers. Today, we're honored to welcome Miami-Dade State Attorney Katherine Fernandez Rundle. We will speak about her public service, her Hispanic roots, and her office work to combat human trafficking, especially now as Miami welcomes FIFA World Cup 2026. State Attorney Fernandez, thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm just so excited to be part of our wonderful Hispanic Affairs Advisory Board presentation and being proud of who they are. And I feel very special to be part of this program, to be here today.
And we are so very honored that you're here, like I said before. And, I've been looking at your history and your service to our community. As a matter of fact, I worked under the state attorney's office right before you started. And I think I was there for about 2 months, and then I changed careers.
How did I get so unlucky that I lost you? I hadn't even started.
I worked under the child support.
Oh,
wow.
wow.
A long time ago, right after I finished
That's amazing.
law school. Yeah. So our paths have crossed that a lot of times. So I'm very blessed that you're here. And I wanted to ask you, because of course, everything that happens to us, we have, where do we come from? I'm thinking about your Hispanic roots. I know that your father, I remember your father actually from Cuba.
Wow.
So that's the history. So tell us a little bit about his influence and your mother and how that influence made you who you are today.
For me to talk about my family, it just touches my heart. So, and I'm grateful that you asked that question. But I do need to say one thing before I go into the family that gave me so much of my roots. A lot of it had to do with women such as yourself, who were strong, pioneer, Hispanic women in unknown charted waters, who just pursued, worked hard, and we just would all look at you and others and say, okay, I'm learning from her. So thank you for what you have done and what you continue to do to represent not just women, but all of we Hispanics in our community. Thank you.
And we were talking about your parents again. I know that he was the first Hispanic judge in our area. And actually, you were trying to tell me a story, and I wanted to share with the rest of our audience today about your father, that he wanted to be a prosecutor like you are. And tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
So very, very quickly, that my father had studied. He was the president of the Havana Law Society at the University of Havana in Cuba. And when he left Cuba, his law degree didn't work. So like so many others, so he had to start over again. So he went to the University of Miami. And at the University of Miami, he had a friend from Cuba who was a woman. And her name was Maria, and she ended up in the dorm. And in the dorm comes this really beautiful green-eyed lady from Chicago. She was an Irish woman. So Maria says, I want you to meet this Cuban guy. You're going to love him. And my mother, in her innocence, goes, what's a Cuban? Well, that was the beginning of a long story for the two of them. Say they met and they fell in love, and she was 21, and I don't know, he 26 or 27. But and they wanted to get married, and the family disowned her. It was an Irish family from Chicago, and it was just shows it was a sign of the times. And so they disowned her, never went to the wedding, and she was a young girl. But they made a wonderful life together. So fast forward, I was very lucky because he would always take me to court. He would always, he had a bufete, which for most people, is a law office. And it said Bufete de Carlos B. Fernandez on the outside. And I'd see this line of people. And it was primarily exiles who had come, were forced from their loved ones, everything they owned, everything they built, their industries, their homes, their schools. And they came to this country because they had to. And they needed to learn the ways. They needed to start all over again. So fortunately, my father knew Spanish and English, not great English, but sufficient. And so they trusted him, and he got his law degree here because, remember, he had to redo it. So I remember just watching all those people, many in tears, many, coming out with smiles. Muchísimas gracias, they called him Benito. And just I could see their problems and how he was solving them. And that had a profound impact on me because who doesn't like that? To see it in reality really play out. And then, so many years later, of course, I wanted to be a lawyer since I was like 5, and I would watch all those old-fashioned shows, Perry Mason.
Perry Mason.
I know,
Yes,
right?
my favorite.
I know, but the only thing is, in those days, somebody in the back of the room would go, "I did it." We don't have that today, but so I would watch them with him, and he'd take me to court. I was one of 4; I was the oldest of 4, and so I was like his buddy because my mother was very busy at home taking care of 4 little children. And I remember it came time to go to law school. And he said to me, where are you going to go? Dad, I want to go to the University of Cambridge in England. I had been there one summer. He would take us on. He believed that we should understand all cultures. He spoke like 7 languages. And so we were in England, and I said, this is where I want to be. It was just so different from University of Miami. And I love University of Miami, go the U. But and he was not happy about it. Why are you going to go? And that's not the word he used. We all know the word. He probably preceded that sentence with, why are you going all the way to England? You're going to practice in Florida. Right. You want to have Florida relationships. And I said, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm going. So I did go. And it was a beautiful experience. It really made me love my country. It made me a huge patriot to see how they would attack us. It was not a good time in our history. It was Watergate and all those kinds of things, and the Nixon regime. It was just a lot of criticism against the United States. And so I also learned a lot about international law, and I decided what I wanted to do was go to The Hague and fight against human rights violations. That's, especially against women and children in these really, isolated areas of the world where they had no voice, they had no stature. And to make a long story short, I came home, I graduated, and he said to me, okay, so, hija, ¿qué vas a hacer ahora? And I went, I just got here. Yeah, what am I doing? Dad, it's summer. I've been studying for the last, 25 years of my life. Can I take a break? He goes, absolutely not. He says, you gotta go try the state attorney's office. And I said, well, what is that? And he goes, well, and he told me what it was. I said, Dad, I didn't go to law school to put people in jail. I just did it. It's not. He says, no. It's so much bigger and so much more important than that. Just do a summer internship. And he was right. And I did. And I fell in love with its mission. And I was so blessed to discover then that I didn't need to travel 5,000 miles away to solve human rights violations, indignities, inhumanity to others, especially women and children, the most vulnerable in our society. And so I was so happy that I found that. And then when he passed away, the state attorney came over to me and said, you don't know this about your father. And he goes, but, I always regretted not hiring him. I said, what are you talking about?
Ganarino,
No, at the time it was Gerstein. I know, because Gerstein was the state attorney at my father's time. I went to work for Miss Reno, but you're right. I should have made that clear. So Mr. Gerstein had met my father, Carlos, in law school at U of M. So they liked each other. But he said, I was down to 2 people. And as much as I liked your father, and he was so nice and smart, and he said his accent, I couldn't do it, Kathy. And when I told him, he understood. He says, I understand. And no problem. He's never been him. I never knew that story. I could cry now about it because he gave me the opportunity he always wanted.
Exactly, because that was going to be my next question, because all the years that you've been in public service, my God, a long time, and always trying to help others. I know that you probably at that time when you were 25, you said, I don't want to put people in jail, but you were actually doing a service teaching others about what kind of things they needed to do to make sure that they stayed in the certain narrow. And speaking about that, now that I'm thinking the fact that we are in the middle of the World Cup, FIFA World Cup in Miami, and of course it's being held for the first time in 3 countries, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Tell us a little bit about how is that influencing the work that you're doing as a state attorney now that there's so many people and the eyes of the world are in this area?
The eyes really are on the world. And, I just to clarify, I know that unfortunately in our world, in our society, there are those that you can redirect. you can redirect them from crime, whether it's addiction or mental health issues. And there are others you just have to incarcerate. So the footprint, though, of a state attorney's office is much broader than just putting people away. You got to put those, incarcerate them, keep them away from the others. But there are others that you can redirect, because if you don't fix them, they're just going to go back out and hurt other people and re-victimize. And so then, when you think about women and children, still, even today, as successful as we are, and there are all kinds of laws that favor us now, but, when you look at things like human trafficking. So when human trafficking first came on my radar, I really didn't understand what it was. I had misperceptions. I thought it was children being, kidnapped in the Philippines and put in cargo container ships coming up through Central and South America and ending up in our agricultural world. I was so wrong. When I learned in 2013 that Florida was number 3 in the United States for the numbers of trafficking victims, I went, and then Miami was number 1. And we love being in Miami here, number 1, in all kinds of things, but not in this inhumane crime, this underbelly, really this modern day form of slavery. So we went into high gear, and what we discovered is it's all about money. It's an industry. Worldwide, it's a $256 billion industry. And in the United States alone, it's a $56 billion industry. So what we're fighting here is a huge multi-billion-dollar industry. And those that are at the bottom of that are these primarily little girls. There's some little boys, but 91% of our victims are girls. And so if we changed the laws, we had to build safety nets, we had to build shelters, we had to build a task force, we had to teach everybody. We had to be in our schools, we had to be at PTA meetings, we had to be at law enforcement, emergency rooms, hospitals, first responders. We had to learn ourselves, and then we had to get the word out. And the reason it's become, I think, so much in the forefront is because we finally accept that this exists. And before, I think we just wanted to have blinders on. It happened somewhere else, right? Or it's kids being kidnapped and taken somewhere else. And it's not. It's our boys and girls. So back to the FIFA thing. FIFA is going to be the largest sporting event, I don't know, on the universe or something, but certainly here in our community. And it's a blessing, right, that they chose us. But it's also a responsibility, because we know when lots of people come and enjoy our community and they're going to spend money and they're going to love it. You can already see it. There's a fever pitch. I love those bagpipes, right?
I know.
Right? In Little Havana, right? Yes. The Scottish bagpipes in Little Havana. The tartans. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Right? So that's who we are. And so people get to see it, they get to feel it, they get to taste it, they get to dance to it and all those things. However, we also know that bad guys come. It's just like they used to deal in drugs and they used to deal in firearms. They're dealing in little children. The difference is they're not as dangerous because they're very compliant. These victims are drugged, beaten. They're stripped of all their identity, their humanity, their dignity, and they're sold around the clock. They're isolated. They have no one to reach out to. There's no one there. So we as a community, that's why I love our community. Don't you love our community?
I love it. And one of the great things, because of where you are as the state attorney's office leader of this community, because of you created this task force to help make sure that these people have someone that can help them get out of this. How has your team and partnerships with different sectors of our community has helped to make sure that people that are looking to Miami as a human trafficking capital of the world, they know that that's not going to happen?
That is such an important point. And so, kind of going back to why I'm so happy that I got to be where I am, for this reason, I get to do that. I get to have a platform. And after years of working together, once we understand what the issue is, we got a task force together. Every single police department, for those that don't know, there's 35 police departments in Miami, 37 municipalities. We have federal, state, you have FBI, Homeland Security, Secret Service, Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Marine Patrol that are going to be all our marinas. We have signs even in the marinas. We have digital footprints throughout the entire airport and the seaport. Hard Rock has big, every single suite has messages about what are you looking for? What are the signs? Who do you call?
Talking about that, give us a little bit about those that are watching us. What are some of those signs? What are some of those things that people should be looking for to make sure that they might see something that they might let somebody else know there's something wrong here?
That is one of the most important points that we really need to make. Sometimes people don't want to pick up the phone and say anything because they're afraid they might be wrong. It doesn't matter. We have an anonymous, so we have a rapid response team. It's 24/7. And so if you see something suspicious, and what does that mean? It means you can see a very young girl who seems very dejected. Maybe she's got bruises. Maybe she's got tattoo like brandings. She doesn't have any money on her. She's constantly looking at her cell phone, which means she's probably being controlled. I know we all do a little bit of that, but usually it means they're being controlled by dates. Anytime you can see right away someone's very dejected, they're agitated. If somebody asks, "What is your name?" Like for instance, they're getting on Amtrak, who's also a partner of ours, and we just rescued two girls on a train. They were headed to New York to a person that bought them online. But in any event, so when they're at the ticket counter, it's a man, older man. These days, I get that older men, it's not always going to be that way. But these are a multitude of things you look for. Dejected, doesn't have her own ID, doesn't even have her own money. The only thing she seems to have is that phone. Her dressing is provocative. She's been up all night. She looks tired. She looks alone and isolated, and she's not answering for herself. The other person is answering, the guy is. These are the kinds of things that you might be looking for, and you just call the hotline. And you don't need to, it's okay if you're wrong. All right. You don't have to identify yourself. Just call that hotline. And what we do with that is we have 70 sworn officers around the clock. They're out there, going to be out there tonight. And they're going to respond out to the scene, and they're going to go out there, rescue that person, see if it is what they say, rescue the girl, get her into shelter. They bring her to the only human trafficking center that I'm aware of that exists in the United States. And that's not a shelter, but we get her into shelter. We get her into hotels. If she was, she was dragged from her home in Atlanta, we'll get her home. And so it's really important that the community works with us. And that old adage, if you see something, say something. That's right. If you see something, say something. We need all the eyes and ears in this community. And that's why I'm so grateful you gave me this opportunity.
And we want to thank you. And I know that, you've been in our community just doing that, just trying to help everybody else to make sure that things like this do not happen, that we don't have a young girl that's being trafficked. And you have received, because of that, so many accolades and so many awards. And as a matter of fact, there's one of the awards that you
received,
I think about 10 years ago, is the Women of Distinction. And our program director, Grisel Marino, is receiving it this year. So do you have any kind of advice for her?
Oh my God. She doesn't need any advice. She's doing it. She's amazing. She's wonderful. And coming in this afternoon, I was praising her, what she's done with the Hispanic Heritage Month, the event, the people she connects with. She represents us in such a distinguished way. I love her history. I love her smile. She walks into a room and just everything is fine and happy. She's got it under control. She's just going to be one of many who she will then mentor. And then they're all going to want to be like Grisel. And I kind of want to be like Grisel, don't you?
Of course, and so do I. Thank you very much. And we're going to do a little short thing in Spanish for the rest of our community, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
State Attorney Fernandez Rundle, thank you very much for joining us and giving that important message to our community. Of course, to our audience, thank you for watching Hispanic Pride, Orgullo Hispano. Follow us at Hispanic MDC and subscribe to @advocacy MBC on YouTube. See you next time.